Welcome to Encroachment Sports Talk. The College Football Selection Committee made their choices last week with the 4 teams in the playoffs, and we're going to run down with our reactions and predictions. So, Chris, why don't you give us a little background?
Yeah, thanks, Mark. So I wore a hat here, and we'll talk about what that's all about in a second. But let's talk a little bit of background first. So the 4 teams, I think most people know who's in there and why, but let's talk about it really quickly. So Alabama beat Georgia. They're 12-1. They're the SEC champ. Their only loss was to Texas. Michigan's in. They're undefeated in the Big Ten. They're 13-0. They sweep by OSU. Texas is 12-1. They lost to Oklahoma. They had a close call with Kansas State in overtime, 33-30, and they're 12-1. And then Washington is 13-0. They beat Oregon twice, but it was very close both times. So those are our 4, and you know, there's a lot of controversy because there are 2 teams in there with losses, and there's one team that was left out, which is Florida State, by the way, that was undefeated. So, Mark, what's your reaction? There was a lot of reaction. What's your reaction to that in general?
I have an obvious reaction. I think the obvious reaction is the team that you're sporting there on your hat got absolutely screwed, and let me explain why. The committee is tasked with picking the 4 best teams based upon certain criteria, and one of them is conference champions, and I get that. And there were 5 power conferences, 5 champs. But the clear decision criteria is that results matter. If results didn't matter and you were tasked with simply picking the best 4 teams, Ohio State probably would have at least been considered. If you were at all focused on what happened, Ohio State wasn't even considered, and they ended up ranked 7th. For a team who was first for majority of this process and then second, and then lost on the road to the team who ended up number 1 in a 1-score game decided with, 1 touchdown that could have gone either way, it's clear that they were not considered because results matter. And that's fine. They didn't win their conference championship. They lost their 1 opportunity to get in. Results matter. So,
So it's hypocritical, basically.
So they've established that results matter. Now let's go back to one thing. Do you believe that one single play, if you're focused on who could be the best 4 teams in, do you think one single play in any game this season would actually impact your decision of who has the best chance to win going forward?
Yeah, the answer should be no, right?
Probably not, right? One single play. Well, but let me ask you something. This was the most miraculous and idiotic and an infuriating play I've seen all season, was the way Auburn snatched defeat from the jaws of victory against Alabama by muffing a punt when you have the chance to take the ball with 5 minutes and 30 seconds back, up 4. I think they were up 4, up more than a field goal.
Right.
And they muffed the punt and give Alabama a chance to score. But most importantly, 4th down and goal from the 31-yard line, and they idiotically decide to rush 2 guys. I don't know if you watched that, but there's 2 guys rushing, getting blocked by 5 guys. They had zero.
The replay. Yeah.
They had 0 chance to affect the play in any way. Why would you rush 2? If your decision is, I want to put more guys back, rush nobody.
Yep.
Put them all in the end zone. You have to score a touchdown. Anything else, they lose the game. And instead, the guy, Milroe is back there doing his nails, doing his taxes, going to the bathroom. Then he decides to throw for a touchdown. There's going to be a breakdown in the end zone, and that's what happened. So if that play doesn't happen, I'm sorry to go off on this rant, but if that play doesn't happen, Alabama loses, and they are not considered, right? Because results matter. Right. You don't just pick the best 4 teams; you pick the most deserving teams.
Right.
I mean, it's subjective, and that's what's a real shame. But Florida State should be enraged. They are enraged, and it's a crime. I'm sorry, but the SEC, because of results matter, the 3 obvious teams that should have made it were Michigan, but we can get to them in a second. You're not off the hook yet, Michigan.
Yeah.
We have Michigan, Washington, and Florida State. Those teams ran the table. Right. But then after that, it comes down to either Texas, Alabama, or Georgia. Alabama is in over Georgia because they beat them. Right. Same way Ohio State was out, with Michigan. You had your chance, you lost. Right. But Texas took care of Alabama.
Right.
Clear cut. Texas should have been the
comfortably at Alabama, by the way.
Right. So sorry, SEC. Sorry, you're not as good as you think you are.
Yeah.
Also, the SEC's record out of conference was like five or against the Big Ten. I forget if it was out of conference or Big Ten was 5-7. They're not like the power conference this year that they think they are. So yeah, I think Florida State got absolutely screwed.
Yeah, I agree. So the I'll play devil's advocate here. I agree they got screwed, first of all. And I think all the points that you make, I completely agree with. What the committee said when you listened to their interviews, and you heard this, right, was we had to factor in the injury to their ACC Player of the Year quarterback, right? And so what they did is they essentially said, but my point there is even without him, and he went down against North Alabama or something, or Northern Alabama, where God forbid I don't even know why he's playing that game, but
good point.
Yeah, I mean, but so he's down, and his backup somehow is not able to play either. So they're on the third string quarterback, and he doesn't look good. But they still beat Louisville in the championship game, right? So results matter somehow.
Yeah, a number 10 or 12 Louisville team by allowing 6 points.
Right.
That's the other thing that I really.
Their defense was outstanding. Their defense was outstanding.
Exactly. It really bothers me. And Booger McFarland has been like espousing this the whole time. You can't dictate how a team is supposed to win. Why are you down playing defense? The quarterback is one position on the field. Yes, it's important, but you also look at the Heisman. It's going to be a quarterback. Why in the NFL it's going to be a quarterback? Why is the quarterback position the only one that's given any merit in anything related to football? I mean, Florida State has impressively, and I think they also factored in the fact that they were down to their third quarterback. Yeah, but right, their second string quarterback, by the way, got knocked out due to a really, really Bush League. Florida was out of control with these Bush League late hit. They went high and low. Took him out on a slide. When he gave himself up, they knocked him silly. But that guy's going to be back from concussion in 3 weeks. And he's not, you can't factor that in. He's a relatively accomplished backup quarterback. He's a junior. He's not horrible. Right. They had a shot. I'm telling you, they got absolutely screwed. And I'm not a Florida State fan at all. Right. I have 2 other dogs in the race that didn't get in.
Well, anyway, I wore the hat. I'm not a huge Florida State fan, but I just think they got they got gypped big time. And I understand why there's so much outrage there, because the standards themselves don't seem to be applied consistently, and it's hypocritical. And you know what? The SEC, they'll talk all day long. It's not about us. It is about them. They always dip somebody in, regardless. Yeah. It's like,
Let's talk about the other big elephant in the room that conveniently and surprisingly has gone like silent since it was like this cheating scandal with Michigan was discovered. It's a clear violation of the NCAA rules. For those of you not familiar, the NCAA rules prohibit representatives from a team to attend in person any game of their upcoming opponents, or maybe even any other team in the league, because you don't know what their opponents might be come playoff time. And there was a low-level assistant named Connor Stallions from Michigan that was documented for having this whole scheme where he bought all kinds of tickets at the 40-yard line for himself and associates who were on video filming the opposing team's sideline. They fired the guy, for God's sake. They've admitted wrongdoing, and the NCAA already has a policy that, obviously anybody who's got any salt, any sense of any, common sense knows that Harbaugh knew what was going on, but he's obviously claiming that he didn't know what was going on. But for that reason, that's not an excuse. And the Big Ten was smart enough to suspend the guy for 3 games, but suspending a head coach, he was able to coach during the week. He was able to work on game plans. He just couldn't actually make the calls on game day. Yeah. Anyway, it's just baffling to me how the NCAA they're going to take their 1.5 years to finish the investigation. What are you going to do? So if Michigan wins, you're going to come back and say, no, you didn't win. Does that mean, what about the teams who got kept out? Maybe it's Ohio State, maybe it's Florida State. Right. What about, Michigan having stolen that opportunity from those players? That's not fair at all. And let's take an example. You talk about being inconsistent. I know this was 11 years ago, and this shows some of my bias, but in after the 2011 season, it came out that I think 8 players on the Ohio State team were implicated in having sold or traded for free tattoos merchandise that was worth $14,000 that they were given free from Ohio State, and they, back then they couldn't make any kind of money, so they wanted to turn that into a little money.
Right.
You know what happened to Ohio State? They had a bowl ban for 2012. Do you know how many losses Ohio State had in 2012? 0. Cost them a chance at the national title, right? So they have serious sanctions. Michigan gets off because the NCAA
it's so inconsistent. It's really well. Do you remember the USC thing too with Reggie Bush too? I mean, they actually won the thing and they took the title back, but they'd already won the title. So
yeah,
does that matter? I mean, yeah, it just whatever. You take it back after the fact.
Yeah. Okay, so I didn't have the best time of my life celebrating, partying after.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. I didn't go watch that
tape. Come on.
Yeah, you can't do so. Anyway, that is not something that I feel is fair at all. So anyway,
let's talk about the predictions, because we got what we got now, right? We got the 4. It is what it is, as they say, and we got Alabama and Michigan. What do you think happens there? So just to give you some background, Michigan is what are they, like a 1.5 favorite?
Yeah.
So what do you think happens there?
I'm
besides what you want to have happen there.
I'm not picking what I want to happen. Well, this is like 2 teams that I feel don't belong there. So what I want to happen is the game to be canceled and them to declare Washington, Texas winner the champion. But that's not going to happen. Right. So I think it's going to be a tough defensive battle in the low 20s, 24-21 type score. It's going to come down to a last possession. And I think Michigan's going to pull it out. I think they're the toughest defense. Well, Georgia's a tough defense, but I think Michigan might be a little tougher. I think Michigan's game planning is just going to, they're not going to let Milroe burn them. I think they're going to be prepared. And I think when they're ahead on the last drive, they're going to be too smart to rush 2 freaking people. They're going to rush 3 or 4 and they're going to get to Milroe. They're not going to sit back. I don't think I didn't have many dogs in the hunt, but that just infuriated me.
I know. I remember getting a text from it when it happened, and I thought you were going to have a stroke. I was like, geez. So I know how serious it was for you. And I did watch the highlights, and it was just ridiculous. I mean, nobody would ever play that. It's not even a prevent. It's nothing. It's like it's a hybrid of 0. Basically.
I think that's like, I haven't seen poorer defense than when Gronk was playing defensive back for the Patriots in the Miami Miracle, which coincidentally happened 5 years ago today. So
that's right. There you go.
Who do you like in this game?
Well, so I'm going to take Alabama, actually, because Michigan just in the last, Michigan's historically underperformed in the championship game, right? I mean, you've seen it. So in 2025, they lost to Georgia. They got pummeled 34-11. They shouldn't even been facing Georgia that game. And then they lost to TCU last year, 51-45. It was closer, but in these big, in this quarterfinal, so to speak, or semifinal, they just can't get it done. Let's see if they can.
Yeah, that was also a TCU team that challenged America's ability to do arithmetic in terms of how much they lost the championship game to Georgia by.
Well, that exactly right. So, I mean, so they're a lot of the same players, but maybe they're stronger. We'll see. It'll be. I think it'll be a close game, but I think Alabama pulls it off because I think this Milrose has found his groove. We'll find out.
So who do you like in the battle of your hometown state?
Texas. Washington. I think so. Texas versus Washington. Okay. And actually, what's funny is Texas is ranked lower, but they are favored by 4.5 points, which is crazy, right? So I do think Texas probably pulls it off. Washington's got a great team. I watched them both times against Oregon, but they're playing dominating defense and offense right now. I think that they pull it out, but we'll see. I mean, I think it's gonna be a little bit of a shootout, frankly. We'll see.
Do you happen to recall how what the line was on the Pac-12 championship game, Oregon against Washington?
No, what was that?
Washington was 10-point dogs.
Oh my God.
10-point dogs. So I'm going to go with Washington because I watched every Oregon game this year, and I watched every Ohio State game, and I was firmly convinced that Oregon could take care of Ohio State. And we know how competitive Ohio State was with Michigan, the top team in the nation.
Right.
And Washington, Washington plays down to their level of competition. Right. They struggled against Washington State. They struggled against Oregon State. I believe Arizona State.
Right.
But they win. And then their game plan, both games against Oregon, against a guy who is, one of the final 3 best quarterbacks for the Heisman, Bo Nix, who's just an impressive, accomplished, experienced quarterback.
Yeah.
They made him struggle the first couple times with the ball. And Quinn Ewers, great quarterback, but he's not quite Bo Nix level. I think Washington, with time to game plan for Texas, I think they're going to shock people. And I think they're going to handle Texas relatively easily because Penix and Rome Odunze, I have trouble saying that name.
Say that.
That guy's a monster, big, strong, fast.
Yeah.
Going to be probably the second receiver off the board in the draft, and I just like Washington.
Well, I like, you got me into Penix. I've been watching him because I want to see where he goes.
You want to see him in purple again?
Yeah, I hope. I can only hope, right?
You limit your scouting for. I remember back in the day, you wanted Joe Burrow, but you were disappointed that he kept excelling and moved himself out of the.
It's true, right? Yeah, and I would have been right about it too. But poor guy gets injured a little bit. But anyway, so we'll see what happens there. My final is Alabama versus Texas. I have Texas winning. I have Sarkisian beating his mentor, and there's some Cinderella story there. So
and all is right in the world because it's not Alabama or Michigan. I'm doing the same. I am taking Washington to shock the world and take care of business over Michigan and make everything right in the world. So,
so we both have Cinderella stories, different versions of it, but they both happen. And like you said, good karma happens for the right reasons at the end.
Yeah, I think it'll be fun to watch. I'm very disappointed in how things ended up, but that said, Alabama, Michigan will be a battle of 2 behemoths and must-watch TV.
Oh, no doubt about it. And let's remind everyone, this will be the last time we have 4 teams in this thing. So this conversation changes next year.
You know what's funny? And the NCAA tournament in basketball has 68 teams, right, that get in. And there's still a big debate over we should have been the 65th team in, or So when they go to 12, you're going to have the
13th and 14th going.
Yeah, you're going to have Louisville and Liberty complaining about the fact that they didn't get the 12th spot. But frankly, in football, if you're down at 12, you're not getting there. There's a chance, but it's going to be super exciting going forward. Imagine the matchups this year. You'd have Ohio State versus Washington or whatever. No, I guess the top 4 would get a bye, but you would have.
But you'd be that. But both of your teams would be in, and you wouldn't be playing Liberty in whatever game it is.
Well, yeah, I wanted to talk about one last thing that proves that results matter, right? Liberty 13-0, and they get in a New Year's Six bowl, which is decided by the same college football committee, and the Oregon Ducks get penalized by playing Liberty because results matter. Somehow you have to, reward this undefeated team. But yet, when it comes to Alabama, they're in over Florida State. So shame on you, College Football Selection Committee. And
that's right. It can't always be about the SEC, period. That's the bottom line. Well, good show. It'll be interesting to watch.
Great show. Yeah, let's say we got a few weeks off. We can get ready, rest up, do some NFL, get some Christmas shopping going, and then be ready for these fun bowl games. So thank you, Chris.
Yeah, thank you.